The ball hit the net with a sharp, hollow crack. Aiden didn't stop. He retrieved it, pivoted on his left heel, and drove it back toward the target. The sun was bleeding into the horizon, casting long, distorted shadows across the grass, but he kept his rhythm. His lungs burned with every inhale, a sharp metallic sting that he ignored. He had been on this field since the final bell rang, repeating the same sequence until his muscles felt like lead. He needed the precision to be automatic. The regional tournament was only days away, and the captain's armband was the only thing that mattered. He missed his mark by an inch, the ball skidding wide of the post. Aiden cursed, sprinted to recover it, and reset his position. He couldn't afford a single error. The roster was tight, the competition was relentless, and he knew the coach was watching every touch. He took a breath, steadied his stance, and focused on the goal. He struck the ball again, watching it arc perfectly into the corner. Aiden paused, his chest heaving, and wiped sweat from his eyes. Across the pitch, the team had started their scrimmage. Lucas was there, weaving through the defense with a fluidity that made the game look like a dance. He didn't seem to exert himself. He just moved, and the ball followed. Aiden watched as Lucas feinted left a defender stumbling, and fired a clean shot into the top corner. The team erupted in cheers. Aiden gripped the ball at his feet, his knuckles turning white. A cold, heavy knot tightened in his stomach, pulling at his breath. He looked down at his own legs, feeling the dull ache of fatigue that never seemed to leave him. He had put in the hours, the extra laps, the endless drills, yet Lucas made it look so simple. The crowd on the sidelines was chanting Lucas's name now. Aiden felt the distance between them growing with every touch Lucas took. What if the coach saw what he saw? What if the natural talent won out over his desperate, grinding work? Aiden stood frozen in the shadows. The coach blew the final whistle. The team drifted toward the locker room, their voices fading into the distance. Gear lay scattered across the sideline like discarded armor. Aiden remained behind, his boots dragging through the dirt. He scanned the area. Empty. His gaze locked onto a bag near the bench. He stepped closer, his heart hammering against his ribs. He reached in and pulled out the football boots. They were light, professional, and expensive. He felt the smooth material beneath his fingers, a stark contrast to his own worn equipment. A sudden, sharp impulse surged through him. He didn't look back. He gripped the boots tight and sprinted toward the far end of the field. The rusted storage shed loomed ahead. He scrambled inside, the smell of damp wood and oil filling his lungs. He found a gap behind a stack of rotting pallets and shoved the boots deep into the darkness. The field was silent again. He turned and walked away, his hands trembling, the weight of the secret already settling into his chest. The morning air was sharp, biting at the skin. Aiden reached the field early, his pulse erratic. He stood near the center circle, feigning a stretch, but his eyes were locked on the sideline. Lucas was already there, but he was not warming up. He was on his knees, his hands tearing through the contents of his bag. He pulled out a water bottle, a towel, and spare socks, tossing them aside into the grass. He stood up, spun around, and checked the ground again. He looked toward the locker room, then back at the bench, his face drained of color. Aiden felt the cold knot in his stomach tighten until it burned. He gripped his own ball, his knuckles white, and forced himself to look away. Lucas let out a low, desperate sound, his voice trembling as he muttered to himself. He checked the bag one more time, shaking it upside down. The coach walked onto the field, whistle in hand, and blew a sharp, piercing note to start the drills. Lucas didn't move. He stood frozen, his feet bare against the cold turf, his spirit visibly fraying. The tryouts had begun, and Lucas was already lost. Lucas tried to run. His feet slapped against the hard turf, unprotected and stinging with every stride. He stumbled during the cone drills, his balance failing him as he reached for the ball. He couldn't find his rhythm. He couldn't find his speed. The coach watched him for a long moment, then shook his head and gestured for him to step off the field. Lucas walked to the edge of the grass and sat down, his head dropping into his hands. The tryouts continued, but the energy had shifted. Aiden stepped into the vacant spot, He moved with a forced precision, his legs heavy, his focus split between the ball and the figure on the bleachers. When the final whistle blew, the coach walked straight to him. "The spot is yours, Aiden." The team erupted. Aiden looked toward the sidelines. Lucas remained motionless, staring at the empty grass where his gear should have been. The cheers sounded distant, muffled. Aiden stood in the center of the jubilant group, but as he watched his friend, the taste of the moment turned bitter. The tournament match was a blur of noise and motion. Every time Aiden touched the ball, the memory of the storage shed surfaced, a sharp, cold spike in his chest. He moved through the midfield, but his legs felt like lead. He was not playing, he was hiding. The game clock ticked down toward the final minute. The score was locked in a stalemate. Then, a gap opened in the defense. A teammate sent a long, perfect cross floating toward the goal. Aiden saw the ball arching through the air, drifting toward his feet. He was alone, the net wide open, the goalkeeper caught out of position. He planted his foot to strike, but his rhythm shattered. His mind flashed to Lucas sitting on the bleachers, and his muscles locked. He swung his leg, but his timing was off by a fraction. His boot caught the bottom of the ball, sending it spiraling high into the stands. The whistle blew. The game was over. The team collapsed in defeat, their shoulders slumping in unison. Aiden stood frozen in the center of the pitch, his lungs burning. The silence of his teammates louder than the crowd. The locker room air was stagnant, smelling of sweat and failure. No one spoke. The sound of a single hand hitting a locker echoed like a gunshot. Lucas walked across the room, his stride steady, and placed a hand on Aiden's shoulder. "Don't worry, we'll train harder next time." The touch burned. It was a physical blow that left Aiden gasping for air. He could not look at the kindness in his friend's eyes. That night, he stared at the ceiling until the sun bled through the blinds. He rose, walked to the coach's office, and stood before the desk. His hands gripped the edge of the wood until his knuckles turned white. He placed his jersey down. "I hid his shoes," he whispered. The words hung in the room, sharp and final. The coach turned, his expression hardening into a mask of disappointment. He summoned Lucas. When his friend entered, Aiden looked directly at him. He recounted the walk to the shed, the rotting pallets, and the stolen time. The team moved on without him. The locker room door clicked shut, leaving Aiden in the quiet of the empty hallway. He walked away from the field, his boots heavy on the pavement. The coach had been clear. No spot, no team, no exceptions. For 3 months, the sun became his only companion. He rose before dawn while the rest of the school slept and headed to the far perimeter of the track. He ran until his lungs felt like raw glass. He practiced footwork against a cracked concrete wall, the ball rebounding with a dull thud. He did not look for the team. He did not ask for a second chance. He simply worked. Every drop of sweat was a payment for the lie he had told. He pushed his body until his muscles trembled, forcing himself to maintain form even when exhaustion threatened to buckle his knees. The solitude was a sharp, constant reminder of what he had thrown away. He spent hours repeating drills, refining his touch. There was only the grind of the dirt, the ache in his legs, and the slow, steady process of turning his shame into discipline. The final morning of the tryouts arrived with a biting wind. Aiden was already at the center of the field, his movements fluid and precise. He did not look at the bleachers. He did not look for approval. He simply focused on the rhythm of the ball against his feet. A shadow fell across the grass. He stopped, chest heaving, and looked up to see the coach standing a few paces away. The man held a whistle in one hand and a jersey in the other. He tossed the jersey toward Aiden. It landed in the dirt, but Aiden did not hesitate to pick it up. He pulled it on, the fabric tight against his skin. The team watched from the sideline, their faces unreadable. Lucas stood at the front, his expression neutral. Aiden stepped into the drill, his touch light, his vision clear. He moved with a purpose that had been missing for months. He did not play to win at any cost. He played to be honest with every strike of the ball. When the final whistle blew, the coach nodded once, A sharp, decisive movement. Aiden had earned his place back. He walked off the field, his head held high, the weight of the past finally replaced by the steady pulse of his own integrity. He realized then that the trophy was just metal, but the path he had walked to earn his spot was the true victory. He was back, and for the first time, he was whole.